Whether you're excited about DeAndre Hunter or not, you're sad about Keon Ellis leaving or not, I do believe that this was not just all right, we'll just take him whatever. Like, the reason why I feel the Sacramento Kings were willing to take on the more money short term for DeAndre Hunter, we're willing to send out a second-round pick to the Chicago Bulls in order to facilitate this deal. I do believe that Scott Perry is a big fan of Hunter, and in fact, that's not really a hot take from me. You can hear it from Scott Perry himself. Kyle, why don't you fire that clip? This is Scott Perry on his old podcast, the Hoop Genius podcast, back in February.
Don't forget my podcast.
February of 2025, talking about DeAndre Hunter.
I love the move for Cleveland, to be honest with you. I'm a DeAndre Hunter fan. Sat and watched him play many times against us when I was most recently executive with the Knicks. This guy shows up and competes. You know, the only negative I can really say about him is that he's had a little bit of an injury history as well in his career to date. But when healthy, this guy shows up, competes. He's improved every year. He gives you the ability to shoot threes from the perimeter. He can also beat you a little bit off the dribble. I think he has a little bit of toughness with him. He brings some size to that wing position. And I know they were bringing him off the bench here recently in Atlanta, but for a number of years, he was their starter at that small forward position. So as long as he can stay healthy, I believe he is one of those guys who's a smart enough player, and his style of game will be able to fit in and blend in with the two guards they have there, and Mitchell and Garland, and then obviously the emergence of Mobley, who has the ball in his hands more now and being more aggressive offensively. To have him there as an outlet on the wing, being able to shoot the ball and then occasionally be able to attack the rim here and there. And I believe he will accept his defensive assignment. I like the move for Cleveland.
So all that context that he just laid out about DeAndre Hunter completely applies to what his role would be in Sacramento. Like, DeAndre Hunter is not here to be a top guy. He's not. He's a complementary piece. And we don't know what he's complimenting yet.
Right.
Hopefully we'll know by the end of the draft who he's complimenting specifically. But we do believe that he can, whether it's complement or partner with a Keegan Murray in the front court, that was a big factor or reason for the Kings having interest in this move. But it's very clear that Scott Perry sees a lot of value in Hunter. He didn't just trade for him just for the sake of trading for him, because that was the only way he could move on from the Dennis Schroeder contract. In Scott Perry's mind, whether the fan base feels this way or not, he accomplished three things. One, he traded away. He got something for Keon Ellis he was likely to lose for nothing. Granted, that's a circumstance of kind of his own making. Two, he moved on from the Dennis Schroeder contract. Yes, he's the one that signed it initially, but he was able to move on from what ended up ultimately being a mistake. And three, he managed to turn it into a player in DeAndre Hunter who has been on his radar or has been a player that he's been interested in for a while or intrigued by for a while, who also has been a need for this Kings organization for years. So there's a reason to believe that the Kings are very positive, very excited about the trade that they were able to pull off on Saturday.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear him talk about it. I think, for fans, initially, I think people weren't as happy about DeAndre Hunter coming over here just because of the down season in Cleveland. And I think the biggest part is because you got rid of a player here that, granted, might be a little overrated. Maybe if you look at the outside and hearing some of the national media actually now talk about it, I think there's a realization that DeAndre Hunter is actually the best player in the trade.
Yes, he is.
And the Kings got him.
Yes.
I know that's hard for Kings fans to separate themselves a little, but I truly do believe Hunter is the better player. I mean, just in terms of his points per game, I know, you can look at his three-point percentage. It's gone down this year. I think it was at 42.3% last year. This year it's down 30.8. A lot of his numbers are down, right? I don't think it was necessarily the fit in Cleveland that they thought it would be.
Yep.
Coming off the bench, I think we spoke about it yesterday with Danny from Locked On Podcast, Cunningham.
Danny Cunningham, yep.
He said it was, for him, he never got in a groove necessarily. And there has been injuries. And I think Scott mentioned it on the podcast too. Like that's the one thing you hope with him coming here. If we want to see these two play together, they've got to actually both be on the floor together in terms of Keegan Murray and DeAndre Hunter. So hopefully that does not play a factor. But yes, Scott Perry clearly saw something in him that he liked and that he has liked that is like, might as well try it here in Sacramento. And if it doesn't work, maybe we could even use him as value next year.
Yeah. Danny talked about the circumstances for DeAndre Hunter changed because in the first, call it half a season, I suppose, when he was traded to the Cavs initially, he played really, really well for them. And then this season, his numbers are pretty much down across the board on both sides of the ball. But Danny shared that because of all the injuries and how banged up the Cavs have been, they leaned on him a little heavier in a different kind of role, less of a complimentary role, more of kind of a focal point role. And he's struggled in that a bit. Now, Kings fans can take that however way they want. They could be nervous about it. They could be, I guess, feel good about it. But here are some advanced numbers, right? Just some advanced numbers that my guy Will Z helped me come up with and put together. We'll talk about the shooting numbers, some of the defensive numbers, and Kayla, feel free to jump in at any time and tell me like how that makes you feel or like what that makes you think of. And I have a general conclusion at the end of all this.
Yeah, let's go, because I feel like when people hear numbers, it's like there's a lot at once.
Yes.
So with each number, we can kind of react to it just because I know like numbers coming at is a lot.
Here's the shooting numbers. This season, the most consistent shot attempt that DeAndre Hunter is taking is the catch and shoot three. He shoots the catch and shoot three 37% of the shots he takes is that catch and shoot three. Like that is his comfort zone. That's what he wants to do.
Yep.
He takes 4 of them a game on average, higher volume than any other shot that he takes. This season, he's shooting 33% on catch and shoot threes.
Okay.
For context, last season, as a whole, not just with Cleveland, but the entire season as a whole, he shot 40% from three-point range on catch and shoot threes. The season before that, 39% from three-point range on catch and shoot threes on the same exact volume.
Okay.
So one season is the outlier.
Yeah.
It's this season. He's having a down shooting year this year, but I don't think that the 30%, his 3-point shooting percentage is 30% this year. His, like we just said, catch and shoot 3-point percentage is 33%. I don't think that's who he is as a player. I think he's going to be a more consistent, better general 3-point threat that the Kings desperately need.
They need. I'm like, the first thing I came to Sacramento with the question in mind is, and I know it's been a thing for a while, like, where is the 3-point shooting on this team?
There is none.
And it's kind of been like
and
that.
Keegan's numbers have fallen off a cliff 3-point shooting wise. He needs to figure that out too because the Kings need Keegan to knock down that three more consistently.
Well, and he can't this year because he's not healthy.
Right, but the Kings clearly need DeAndre Hunter also to knock down that 3-point shot consistently. More often than not in his career, he's been able to do that, which I think is encouraging going forward. However, yes, it is a down year. We can't just ignore it and throw it away.
But he's in a new place.
He is in a new place, a fresh start. I will say the good news is he is a very efficient scorer inside of 10 feet, like around the rim. He converts on 54% of his shots around the rim. So it's not like if he's not hitting threes, he's not giving you anything.
Exactly.
So that's the shooting side of things. But I think it's the defensive side that we kind of figure out who he is as a player, who he's been, where he's at. And I think Kings fans and yourself are probably going to have a lot of reactions to this. Here's the not so good stat. Over the last 5 seasons, in terms of net rating, his team, or excuse me, in terms of defensive rating, his teams have been better defensively with him off the floor.
Okay.
That's each of his last 5 seasons. Not by a tremendous amount, marginal amount, but the numbers show that when he's off the floor defensively, his teams have been better over the last 5 seasons. That is going to set off a lot of alarm bells, a lot of red flags in the heads of Kings. Wow, he's supposed to be a good defender. Blah, 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 blah. However, over the last 2 full seasons, his teams have been overall better in terms of net rating with him on the floor. Why? Because of his offense. His offense has actually carried and made up for any deficiencies defensively.
On the defensive side, yeah.
This season, when guarded by DeAndre Hunter, opponents are shooting about 2% better than their average from 3 They're shooting 2% better than their average period and 5.3% better on average from three-point range. So teams are shooting better, higher percentage. Opponents are shooting higher percentage when guarded by DeAndre Hunter this season. However, around the rim, in the paint, they're shooting about 2.4% worse inside of 6 feet. So he's defending the perimeter or the rim on the inside better than the perimeter, which that's not a very good trade-off because we're expecting him to play more defensively on the perimeter.
Well, either him or Keegan.
Yes, but he's a 6'7", 7'2" wingspan wing. You want him to defend the perimeter. That's what he's there to do. Mm-hmm. He needs to be a better perimeter defender. That's this season, those numbers are down. However, last season, across the board, opponents were all shooting under their average everywhere on the floor when defended by him last season. So it's, again, this season, I think his poor offense is impacting, or his shooting struggles are impacting the way he's playing defense. However, this season, this is a very niche stat, but it's true. In terms of isolation defense and one-on-one scenarios, he's in the 96th percentile. He's the 12th best isolation defender in the NBA.
And Danny talked about that a lot yesterday.
But that doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
We're talking a few scenarios a game, a few possessions a game when that happens. But the overall conclusion of is this. It's a down year for him across the board. He is a very, very solid individual defender. But ultimately, the team defense is not felt as much as his offense needs to be felt. So if he's not hitting shots, it's not going to feel great. That's basically the takeaway. So hopefully he can come to Sacramento, be the defender he's capable of being. He's not going to lock anybody down. Keegan Murray's still the best defender on this team. Mm-hmm. But if he's knocking down his three-point shot at the rate that we've seen him, at a high 30% rate, and catch and shoot threes or close to 40 like he's been in years past, I think it'll be really good for Sacramento. But that's not who he's been for Cleveland this year, which is probably why he was traded.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there was a reason, and I think, new environment can do miracles for players. It really can. I'm not saying that this is the greatest environment in general right now because this is a losing team and they're not going anywhere, but I also feel like Scott Perry identified DeAndre Hunter, before this year. Like, he's obviously known what he is as a player and is satisfied overall with his body of work. We can't just, speaking of ISO defense, we can't just isolate 1 year and call him an awful player.
Sure.
Like, that's not, DeAndre Hunter is a valuable player still. And, we can get into all the details of why we think he might have had a down year in Cleveland. But now this is actually, for him, probably beneficial to get a fresh start where I think he can be used, and we can see him maybe, whether it be when Keegan Murray gets back, or like you said, getting his three back in motion. Mm-hmm. And there's experimental value here right now for a guy like that, where the pressure isn't on him to you've got to help us to get to this spot.
Right. Fix it.
Yeah, it's more like, hey, fix your game here. Yeah. We're going to give you some runway.
Yeah, get right, and you can be part of what we're doing here, and we want to see what it looks like next to Keegan specifically.
There's no guarantees, but you've got someone who believes in you, and you've got some runway.
Right.
So do with it what you please.
From the YouTube chat line, Paulie Walnuts, he says, he's not a great defender, but is a good offensive player. Sounds like a true Sacramento King to me. I know Paulie's making a joke there. It's not that we're saying he's not a great defender. He's not a great defender.
He's a below average defender.
He's a below average team defender. Isolation, he's above average. When, in terms of his individual defensive responsibility, he does a fairly good job.
Right.
But the team defense has not been positively impacted with him on the floor, which is, we could say the same thing about Keegan.
I know. I'm sometimes those numbers aren't.
Though, and again, it's like you're talking about plus minus, and I'm not making an excuse for the guy. The team defensive numbers have to be better, because ultimately, if you're on the floor and you're supposed to be a defensive player, and your team is better defensively when you're not on the floor, there's a problem there.
Especially for Doug Perry.
Yeah.
I did it again. Doug
she did it again.
Me how to do. Dang it! I owe you a freaking energy drink. Oh well, I owe you anyways.
That's the Doug Perry swear jar by
Why?
by Kayla
right.
Anderson.
Oh, well, you know it's contagious, so good luck.
I know.
Because now you're going to get it.
I'm probably going to say it too.
You're
you
gonna
caught
get
yourself earlier in the segment.
I did. I almost called him DeAndre Jordan, not DeAndre Hunter.
God.
So that's $3 in the Kayla swear jar.
In the
I don't
Kayla,
have cash, so I've got to,
to the energy drinks.
Yeah.
No one carries cash.
It's just a mental tally, you know?
Yeah. But anyway, getting back on track, DeAndre Hunter's on-ball individual defense is encouraging. And more often than not, at least recently, it's been good. It's down this year. But in terms of his team defense and overall team impact, his defense is not terrible. But it's not even, I wouldn't even call it bad. It's like Kyle said, slightly below average. But if he's knocking down shots while playing the slightly average to below average defense that he plays, he can overall be a net positive player.
Yeah.
And the Sacramento Kings just period need more net positive players.
But is this, okay, here's the one question I have, though. Because we can't stop talking about defense enough here with Doug Christie.
Nice.
Yes, I had to make sure that it came out cleanly. Is this, though, because you're talking about team defense versus individual defense, is this still something fit-wise for, not Scott, but for Doug and what he expects physicality-wise out of players for what he's looking for in the type of defense he wants?
I think so. I mean, just more, I know it's a buzzword here in Sacramento, but more length and athleticism, period, is needed.
Is a bonus.
So that is a direct need that is addressed by this in theory. I mean, just the intangibles, the immeasurables, things that you can't teach height and length and athleticism. And DeAndre
Which
Hunter
he has that.
does apply that.
Yeah.
In terms of fitting the pillars, I mean, time will tell, but the way we hear Scott Perry talk about DeAndre Hunter again before he was running a team and trying to trade for him was he believed that Scott Perry has a type of player, and it sounds like DeAndre Hunter fits that type of player. So I would say the vision, the belief is that, yes, he will be part of the core going forward. He is a fit. And the Sacramento Kings maybe bought low on him when they could because the Cavaliers gave up a whole heck of a lot more to get him, and things didn't work out, and they moved on from him because they're in a win-now window in the Sacramento Kings. This might be a trade where right now it sucks. So it's like, oh, you had to give up Keon Ellis.
Right.
But if this works out and the Kings sign him to a new deal, 3-4 years from now, we might look back and go, the Kings got DeAndre Hunter for just that. And I don't mean that as a disrespect to Keon Ellis by any means, but the Kings might have taken advantage of the circumstance. I know that is that's a very glass half full way to look at things, and the Kings don't necessarily deserve that benefit of the doubt. But I'm not saying that we can't just write off the trade right now because we have to see how it plays out.
The other part too, Kayla, is whether or not this fits the Doug Christie mold. It's better than Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, who are two of the poorest wing defenders in the NBA.
And that's where I was going. Like, those are clearly like the bottom of the barrel right now in terms of defense.
The DeRozan one is interesting because DeRozan, they just hide him on defense. Like, there's numbers that say he's like the most hidden player in the league. Zach LaVine's just bad on defense.
Let me tell you.
Correct.
I mean, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this too. When Keegan Murray comes back, assuming Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan are still on the team, no idea about Sabonis, but assuming LaVine and DeRozan are still on the team, which I imagine they're going to be.
Yep.
When Keegan Murray comes back, we already saw Doug Christie not be afraid to move Zach LaVine to the bench.
Correct.
Do it again.
I don't care.
Have DeMar start at the 2. Whoever's at the point guard, it's Russ, it's Malik, whoever. Whatever you want to do with the point guard, don't really care at this point. Do not waste our time with DeAndre Hunter's here, but we're going to bring him in off the bench for a limited. No, I want to see Keegan and DeAndre Hunter on the floor together. DeAndre doesn't have to start on Wednesday, tomorrow, against the Memphis Grizzlies if he's cleared to play. I don't even really expect him to.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
But when Keegan comes back, when he's good to go, I want to see those two starting next to each other because if you believe DeAndre Hunter can be that, well, show me. Now's the time.
Well, and there's no excuse not to. Look, they're already in tankathon mode. They're clearly trying to clear out the cupboards. Now, whether or not they can do it with any other players, I have no freaking idea right now. We'll see with Domantas Sabonis, but you're exactly right. Bring DeAndre Hunter, or don't bring him off the bench. Start him, like you said, when Keegan Murray comes back. You got to experiment, and this is the time to do it. And people might get mad for a while, whatever. Who cares? Like, we got to see something.
I think
in terms of the future of what might work and what might not.
Oh, sorry about that, Kayla. I would just add that this year doesn't matter, but personal opinion, in the long run, I kind of think DeAndre Hunter is a backup 3 on a good team.
Probably.
And so it's fine to experiment this year, doesn't matter. But I think long run, if it's Keegan and Hunter alternating minutes and Hunter's at a smaller salary slot, I think that could work great for the Kings when they are ready to compete. Sure. But like you said, right now, who cares? Just figure it out. But Hunter's never been a starting 3 on a good team. No. So therefore, I think he's probably a backup 3 on whatever good version the Kings
and
become.
You're probably right, but I don't care for the rest of this season.
But right now, that's not what we need to worry about.
I want them to play together as much as possible and run it out there and see what it looks like. Unless, of course, you trade for RJ Barrett. Coming up at noon, we're going to talk about the latest from that Domantas Sabonis Toronto Raptors trade, what the hang-up very clearly is and how we get past that, how the Sacramento Kings should budge, how the Raptors should budge. Because I tell you what, if you got RJ Barrett here and now it's a DeMar DeRozan 2, RJ Barrett 3, Keegan Murray 4 with DeAndre Hunter coming off the bench, oh my God, the Kings have wing depth. What the hell is that? A couple years too late. But we'll talk about the Toronto Raptors Domantas Sabonis trade. That could be the next Shams bomb to drop. We are still reeling from the massive trade sending Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Utah Jazz. We're going to have some more breaking news on the other side. Kyle tells me I don't know what it is, but we're also going to hear from Scott Perry's old podcast, not Scott, but the new host of the podcast, talking about the Keon Ellis, DeAndre Hunter trade, and they like it for Sacramento. We'll hear their thoughts and react to it coming up next.